Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Sterling K. Brown, an Emmy winner whose new film is American Fiction by Cord Jefferson. Sterling, this is a great movie, and I just love it so much. I guess just to start, what was your initial interest in the project, and kind of why was this a movie you really wanted to be a part of?
Thanks, Chris. Good to be talking to you. I think the script is fantastic. And I thought it was fantastic from the first time I read it. I was sitting next to my wife on a plane. We were on some sort of family vacation. I think we were actually flying to Germany for my son to participate in the soccer camp. And I was reading the script and I was like, Ryan, that's my wife, this is really fucking good. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, Ryan, it's got Black people in it. And we like doing stuff that people don't normally see Black people do, like just living life. And it's got this wonderful satire that's sort of talking about the fact that we don't get a chance to see Black people do stuff that we don't see Black people do. And then they show Black people doing this stuff that we were talking about. And I was like, what a genius concept to marry the satire with this sort of family drama that's very sweet and painful and mundane and messy and all of the things that sort of express a very full breadth of humanity. And while at the same time having a satire talking about how our experience tends to get limited for mainstream consumption to what Monk calls trauma porn. I just think it's a brilliant concept, like the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down while also showing them an alternative to what could be, right? Cord, it takes a very deft hand to weave those things together and not to make it feel didactic or heavy or like a medicine movie, because it's not anything like that. There's an invitation to laugh with and at yourself from the very beginning. Yeah, that's what brought me in.
So I love everything you said about it too, watching it. And it just felt like a movie. I have not read the script, but watching the movie, it felt like a movie that I'm like, I can't believe this exists, kind of. And I guess, did you get that vibe too? Like, or are we gonna, would we be able to do what's in the script? I guess, would this get sanded down or anything like that? Because it is, like you're saying, satire is so funny. And then you get to have all this real, genuine, family drama stuff that I think is really compelling too. And it just is awesome when it comes together. Yeah.
I think so. I'll go a step further, because the working title of the script that I read at the time of I first got it was "Fuck."
Okay.
So I was like, all right, this is great. If they're able to keep this title, then they really did it. And then as we got closer to showing it to people, they're like, so I was like, are we keeping it? And they're like, well, we kind of have to change the title. And I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. But besides that, this is one of the few times, because movies can take on many different iterations or whatnot, where what was written was pretty much what made it onto the screen, because it was that tight. Like a testimony to the vision and to our producers to be like, no, this is the movie that we bought. This is the movie we're going to make.
Right. You mentioned Cord. Obviously, he's won an Emmy for writing. He's a great writer, first time director. Yeah. I think the movie's a real great success, but I guess for you as an actor who's had such success, what were your expectations, I guess, from him as a director, and how did you how did you find him working with you as an actor, I guess?
Good questions. He was great. He is collaborative. He is egoless. He knows what he knows very well, which is this story. He had a very personal connection to it and a particular point of view, which I think is sort of like the guiding sort of vision for how the story gets told. And he will tell you in a heartbeat, like, he didn't know a lot about lenses. He doesn't know a lot about lighting, but because the story felt so much like his own, that he's like, I knew that I could help to tell it, right? He took whatever we brought as performers in and said, and encouraged us to sort of explore, right? And I think creating an environment where people feel free to play is one of the greatest assets that a director can give its cast. Because if you feel confined or constrained and that you have to do it a particular way, or if the director has it already edited in his head and that you turn on this moment or whatnot, like, it can feel a little sort of like, all right, we're doing it by numbers, or either that you have to find freedom within that form, which you can also do as well. But like this one was, he wouldn't call cut. He was that dude that would let the take go on for an extra 15, 20 seconds. And you're like, all right, what can I find in order to feel like I'm still on Cliff's journey in life? Because he's going to keep living regardless. So you shoot what you want to shoot and you'll cut what you want to cut. But I want to try and see if I can just live in that space as authentically as possible. Just freedom to play, man. Like Chris, at the end of the day, that's all I'm looking for in scene partners, in collaborators, is a freedom to play. We're all telling the same story. We're all sort of like playing the notes of the same music, right? So nobody's being discordant, but everybody is just sort of riffing together. And when you have a great sort of like sheet music to play from, it's easy to find freedom within that form, because this sort of brings you back to the middle all the time.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I felt that watching, because I think this is just an amazing ensemble too. I think all of you guys work really well together. It's like you're all kind of like, yeah, like you said, like you're all complimenting each other. I think it's really great. Did you have like, I guess when you're talking about that, like extending it out and stuff, do you have like scenes where you were like, oh, this like was something we added in or that really worked? Not like an improv or anything, but just like thinking about, like you're saying, like playing and like being able to really embody the character. Like I think
yeah. There would be things like the phone call when Cliff goes back home and he has taken a lover. At like the end of that scene, when I hung up and I told him to eat shit, and then I said, I'm gonna take my lover right now. That was not on the page. That was just from the mind of SKB, because that's what he was about to do. You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
That's a good one. The bocce ball scene after the pool, just like the making fun of Monk and imitating his voice, was not on the page. That was just sort of like seeing him look delightfully pathetic and wanting to just rub his nose in it. That was just, just something that happened in the moment and you just kind of went with, right? It was good.
That's awesome. You mentioned obviously like Jeffrey Wright plays Monk. He's so great. I think again, the two of you together, and I think the rapport you have is amazing, and your chemistry is like, again, very complimentary and all these different things. Was that the first time you'd work with Jeffrey? I actually don't remember. Or no.
First time working with Jeffrey Wright, first time scene partner, long time fan. And I was delighted to see how easy it was. My wife told me in the final scene, well, the penultimate scene with Jeffrey and myself, when they're on the porch looking out across at Coraline's house, and he's kind of sort of talking him through how he wished that he had told his father that he was gay. And at the end of the scene, I sort of invite him to share his full self with everybody who's in his life, because it's better to be known than unknown. And then I give him a little kiss on the forehead. And my wife told me, she said, you kissed him so sensually. I was like, did I really? And she's like, you never kissed me on the forehead like that. And I said, well, Jeffrey has a very large forehead, so it made it very easy. I had a good landing spot to make it all happen. But it felt like, because I had watched him and loved his artistry for such a long time, it was a really, after messing with him so much and being sort of contentious with him, it was a lovely moment of just sort of being sweet to him, so that underneath all of the friction that you've seen, you know that there's love underneath it,
Did it, I guess working with him, I mean, did it surprise, like you said, like I love everybody loves Jeffrey Wright. He's a great actor. It's just like, was there like, did the way he approached anything surprise you or anything like that? I mean, obviously you're your own very much acclaimed and incredible actor, so I'd imagine like that was a great mix. But was there anything watching him perform that you were like, oh, I'd never thought of a performance like that or anything like that?
I guess what surprised me, if anything, and this always happens when you sort of like get a chance to share space with people who are like, that you look up to, is that you find how similar you are. And then you're like, oh, wow, like I've been doing it right. Like, you have these moments of like, yeah, he does it the same way. Yeah, I get that, right? Because you think that there's going to be some sort of special sauce or elixir that they put on things or whatnot, but I think everybody's just trying to mine the truth of the moment, right? There's a level of preparation that allows you to be spontaneous and live in the here and now. And I think that's what I loved about Jeffrey. It's what I love about any great scene partner or whatnot, is that no level of preparation keeps you from being attuned to what's happening now, right? The preparation gives you the freedom to be like, I've done all that. Now let's play. Right. That's exciting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I love that. We're talking about Cliff. I love as a character because, like I said, I think you get to be very, very funny, which I think is great. But it's a real arc. You have like a lot of, like you said, like, you know, like a lot of trauma that he has to go through, or just emotions. Like I just found it all like so well done, and I love the scenes with Cliff and his mom, Leslie Uggams. I think is great as well. I guess like can you talk a little about like digging into those scenes too? Because obviously I like you are very funny, but like you just crush those emotional scenes as well. Like I've seen you do in the past, but here I think really exceptional in this film.
Thank you, man. Gosh, what can I say about it? I think that I'm acutely familiar with the level of homophobia that exists within the Black community. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, and I think I grew up unbeknownst to myself as homophobic. And it took me sort of leaving my environment, going to school in California and New York, entering into the arts, having friends who were LGBTQ, teachers, etc., for me to recognize that like who I thought was different was human like me, just with a different desire for who they wished to be with. And that did not make them foreign or strange. It just made them different in a small way, but we're all sort of human, right? So I think that acute awareness of it, and I've seen how it's played out within my family, which is a very strong Christian family, and the moniker within the family when it comes to things of this nature is you love the sinner, but hate the sin. And I began to sort of, you know, question people who would use that mantra. And I say like, well, to the sinner, how are they able to distinguish between the two, right? If you're not giving them permission to be who they are in your presence, then you're not giving them permission to really be happy, right? So I think with regards to Cliff and that trauma, and other people that I've talked to in my family and other friends or whatnot, it's like you have to leave the place that is supposed to be your safe space in order to find your own tribe, because the tribe that you've been given by birth doesn't accept you for who you are, right? So Cliff goes away and he tries to live a life that he thinks other people will be accepting of, ultimately to find out that like, no, this is too hard and it's not my truth, right? So I think in particular with regards to his mom, who I don't think ever really accepted him, like he'll say little snide comments here and there about like, you know, why are we trying to give mom the best thing? She wasn't the best mama. Like, it comes off kind of funny, but he's like, I'm being serious. Like she was not great at all. But it's, and then he sort of reaches when you hear him talking to Monk at the end, like, it doesn't matter whether they accept me fully or not. Like, it's a matter of like what I choose to share. And in me sharing who I actually am, it's the only way that I can give myself permission to be happy. It may not work with everybody. Like other people may not accept me. But if I don't accept myself, right, then I don't even have a shot. And you find a man who's in the midst of a very messy time of upheaval in his life, but he is in search of trying to give himself the greatest opportunity for happiness. And I'm sort of happy that he allows it to be messy for a while, because you kind of have to learn how to color before you can color inside the lines. Little kids, nobody gets it perfect right from the jump. You're all over the place. And then gradually over time, it gets a little bit neater and neater. And I think that's what's happening with Cliff. Like, as the story goes on, what we don't see, I think it starts to get a little bit neater and neater and neater.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like, yeah, like that scene at the end you're talking about is also like, I think that's like one of the big key messages of the movie, and that you get to like deliver that is such a great sequence. I'm not surprised that I've seen it in like the marketing and stuff, you know, that scene is in the trailer too. It just is a great moment. I think it's like a great scene for you, and certainly the film, this has been like a huge success so far. It hasn't even come out yet, but like won a TIFF, so it's already a huge success somehow, but won an audience award at TIFF. You know, it's like you've taken, it's gone to all these film festivals. I know obviously you have not been able to like go on these journeys because of the strike and stuff, but now that you're back at it, has it been heartening to see how the audiences have really like so far embraced the movie and kind of like really taken to heart, I think, the satire and the family stuff and the drama?
It's been really cool, man. It's been like, because you watch it by yourself. It really, first, just a shout out to the communal experience of going to the theater, which I feel like, I hope it's not a lost art. And you want to thank Greta and Chris Nolan for, you know, sort of keeping folks interested in it in their own ways, right? But like, it's such a joy to watch something that is meant to elicit a response with community, right? Laughter, horror, spectacle, etc. Like, to laugh with people at this movie, in this movie, with them, it feels good, right? And then there's also like a couple of moments that really sort of tickle me. When Monk tells Coraline that she is his girlfriend, not his bookkeeper, man, that shit plays like gangbusters. Gangbusters in the movie. So it's been a delight. And I hope folks get a chance to see it, and see it with community.
And then I guess last thing, I like I said, I'm a huge fan of your work. I think continually doing great stuff. What do you want? Like, do you have like, what are you hoping to do next, or like what kind of challenges do you want to do next for yourself? Like, what are you up to?
Let's see. I know the next project is going to be with Dan Fogelman. We got a show for Hulu called Paradise City, which is going to be a bit of a thriller, political thriller with a bit of a spin, because Fogelman loves surprises. So I can't say too much about the surprise. But I would love, this is the hard question for me. I love everything. Like, I haven't done a horror movie. Wouldn't mind doing like a really cool horror flick. Love to do a little bit more action, like beating people up as much as anybody else does. I think what is important to me, Chris, is to be able to have a career that continuously surprises people. I think that's what's most, especially after 6 years on a show. And I've had 2 6-year stints on 2 different shows that I've loved very much. But I love being known for a body of work versus one particular character. And so if I can keep surprising people, I'm damn near 50, but if I can surprise them a few more times into the 50s and 60s, that would be nice.
I think that'd be great. And this is a great performance as well. Sterling K. Brown, star of American Fiction. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a great chat. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine, Chris.